In your post about the 5 ways to measure marketing ROI, you explain and talk about causal inference with propensity matching. This is a really cool breakdown, how you kind of put it in a lot of your newsletters. You put most of this complex stuff into layman terms for your average marketer to kind of understand, but you break down the detailed method of causal inference and propensity matching, which, in the way you explain it, mimics A/B testing by comparing similar groups to estimate causal effects. And the example case that you use is when Uber launched Uber One. Like, you don't always want to do a big test for like rollouts like this, like product experiences or like new big features within the product, right? So, how do you select the right variables for this matching, like especially with complex behaviors like loyalty programs like Uber One was, and like maybe touch on how do you ensure non-technical stakeholders will then understand the results of the methodology that you put together. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so I'll start with your second question and then make sure I get to the first part of it. The propensity, I mean, when you're explaining propensity matching, virtually what you have to do is say, hey, stakeholder, I'm on your side, but neither of us, like neither the data science team or the marketing team wants to just do a controlled rollout because it's in the Uber's case, it was actually going to affect network effects, right? So there's
Right.
actually some bad stuff there, but you go to them and you say, this is the only way we can prove the ROI of our program and understand its value. So you approach it from the perspective of, this is us working with you to find a way around the fact that we can't A/B test. And what we're doing is, instead of comparing, people just randomly who bought versus who didn't, which are inevitably going to be biased, we're going to be comparing people that bought to people that look like they should have bought but didn't, whatever reason they didn't, right? And so you're trying to compare apples to apples instead of what would have been apples to oranges if you can't A/B test. So that's how I explain it. And obviously every marketer is like, great, sounds like we have a chance of proving this is impactful, so go ahead. And there's no risk of like hold back, which
Right.
marketers hate, right? Marketers hate holding back. So propensity matching overcomes that. And then from the variable selection, first party is always best because one, it's first party data, because it's one, cleaner, but two, it represents the actions of what a customer is doing, right? Like, we could have gone down the rabbit hole of trying to get demographic data, but one, that's expensive. Two, then you have to do matching on that demographic data. And also, like with a lot of privacy stuff, it gets very complex very quick.
Yeah.
When you start with first party data, you might not know stuff like age, gender, race, but you do know behaviors. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do are influence behaviors. And so having variables like, what day of week do they ride the most? What time of day? What car type, right? Were they Uber Black? Were they Uber X? Are they Uber Pool? Where do they live, right? Because we had this beautiful ability to know every single city center in the country and, well, in the world too. We could say city center, so urban versus suburban. All of a sudden, you've got all this information about them. How long have they been on the platform, right? All this first party data that all of a sudden you're like, I've got a pretty solid, comprehensive understanding of what they're doing. Even stuff like, you know where they're going. So people that are commuting, I lived in DC for a long time. So people are commuting to the White House area during rush hour are probably government employees. You can start to put personas around these things. And so first party data is where you should always start. And it's usually a lot richer than people give it credit for. It might not have the demographic data that people associate with segmentation, but behavioral segmentation is just as rich and oftentimes more accurate because you don't have to do the matching.